because for today's class, I have prepared a presentation, PowerPoint presentation, which is basically taken from Robin's thing. So apart from that, anything you would like to share with me or ask me before we begin? Okay, if not, let's just start with the
I'm not sure about the previous classes, but in the last week, actually, everybody has their own approach of teaching and their own with a different pace altogether. But I didn't see anyone actually creating a proper PowerPoint and presenting it. So I would be glad to see this. Thanks.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So this is basically the presentation by Pearson Education, where I have taken a little bit of edited, added 2 or 3 slides from my end. Generally, I've taken this because it's taken from the Robin's textbook, Robin and Judd's Organization Behavior textbook, and most of your syllabus covers all of this. So it'll be easier for you to go back and read through it also. So I was informed 13 units have been covered so far, and the next unit is about leadership. So before we begin, I kind of like a more interactive class so that, I understand where you are if you're understanding what I'm trying to tell you, and where your knowledge is at present, and how much more I can do. So that's why I like interactive classes. So before we begin, what is leadership according to you?
The person who guides the group.
Okay, good. Thank you for answering. Anybody else?
A leader is a person who motivates the team.
Very nice. Thank you. Anybody would like to add it? Okay. So, as 2 of your classmates answered, a leader who guides the group, a leader who motivates the team. Now, in today's world, it is very much important to have somebody guide us, to have us show some direction so that we could achieve our goals. We have a vision which is set, and that would help us to achieve the goals and so on. So the leadership, if I want to define, I would say like it's the ability to influence a group towards achievement of vision, mission, or goals of an organization. So if we are seeing even from school age, we always have had class leaders where, or the class monitors who monitors or who leads us, who helps us in providing information, what the teachers want to communicate, bridging the gap between the teacher and the student, and so on. So we can define leadership as the source where, in the organization, in the managerial rank, somebody who is there is also called a leader. A manager is also a leader. A team leader is also a leader. A supervisor is also a leader. So here we have all these people in different positions who are trying to influence a group of team or a group of individuals who are working together on a particular project or working together towards a particular goal, whatever the organization has wanted. So in other words, leaders can emerge within like a group as well as formally have a position as a leader. So among the team as well, some of them, you can find them social loafing, some of them wants to take the initiative, some of them show leadership qualities where they want to emerge as a leader, or they give direction to a team with regards to a certain project and so on. So leaders can be within the group as well as they can be appointed with a formal position given to them, like a manager or a supervisor or a team leader. So organizations need strong leadership skills and strong management for optimal effectiveness in the organization. So if an organization wants to emerge as a, you could say like, in terms of production, in terms of interpersonal skills, employability skills, and so on, they definitely would need a strong leadership team who will help the other employees to guide and who will help the other employees to raise from what they're doing from their boundaries and help them achieve the certain goals that are set up by the organization. So also leaders need to be challenging, who can challenge the status quo, who can create visions for the future, and also inspire and motivate other members in the organization to achieve the vision and mission. And obviously, we need leaders to help us help us plan a detailed plan to achieving the goal, then create organization structures to see day-to-day operations and look into the other aspects in the organization. And if you look at management overall is the use of authority inherent in a designated formal rank to operate in compliance from organizational members. So management will consist of leaders from various different departments who want to work together as a team to help the organization achieve its vision or set goals for the organization. Now, moving on to the trait theories. First, trait means characteristics. So leadership, when you're talking about leadership, there are various theories in the leadership: trait, behavior, contingency, and so on, which we will be covering at a later rate. So first is the trait theory. This is the first theory which had come on. And as the name suggests, trait means characteristics. So this theory focuses on individual characteristics of successful leaders, and leaders possess a set of traits which make them distinct from followers. So throughout history, we have seen leaders such as Buddha. You must have heard about Nelson Mandela. You all have seen them emerging as leaders. So leaders were there from a long period of time, and they had been described according to in terms of their characteristics and as per their traits. So trait theories of leadership focus more on personal qualities and characteristics. So theories that consider personality, social, physical, or intellectual characteristics to differentiate leaders from non-leaders. So this is how the trait theories looks into. You all recognize Apple co-founder Steve Jobs, American Express chairman Ken. So all these leaders, you recognize them as charismatic, enthusiastic, and courageous leaders, right? So again, each leader has different characteristics, has a different personality, has a different way of social approach, has a different way of intellectual characteristics with them. Some may be like very spontaneous, some may want to plan and then come up with a proper strategy for the organization and so on. So there were a lot of researches done in 1960s on 20 different studies, and they identified nearly 80 different leadership traits. So among those 80 different leadership traits, they found that 5 of the leadership traits were very much common. And by 1990s, a lot of studies and analysis were conducted about, what the most leaders, if you could categorize leaders under certain criteria, if they had to categorized into like normal, non-leader category and so on. And all these traits which they found, like 80 different leadership traits, which I said, it was pretty confusing to categorize leaders through those studies and so on. Then later part of the time, later on, they started arranging these traits into after researches were conducted, after again analysis were conducted, these researchers started arranging these traits into 5 personality characters. So it is also known as the 5 dimensions of a personality character. Have you heard of MBTI or Big Five?
Yes.
Yeah. So the leadership traits were, the traits were divided into the 5 characteristics of MBTI or the 5 personality framework. So the first one was extroversion. So can I ask the class, like you said, what is extroversion? I think somebody
Probably have to get them to mute themselves.
Please, can you all mute? I'm not able to see who's talking.
Mr. KVSV Prasad is a person who needs to mute himself.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So I was asking the class, can you tell me what is the personality or what is the characteristic of an extrovert?
Outspoken.
Outspoken. Good.
Somebody who can connect with people easily.
Okay.
So maybe on an interpersonal skills would be good.
Okay. Then?
Lot more social.
Lot more social. Okay. Right. Okay. So how do you think this this characteristic of being extrovert helps in leadership?
Because you will have to connect with so many people. So you need to be a person who is a people's person also.
Easily mingle with us.
You need to communicate with the people. You need to provide guidance to them. You need to make them understand your vision. You need to show the confidence. So these are the qualities of generally an extrovert person.
Excellent. Good. Yeah.
They can initiate conversations.
They can initiate conversations very well. So does that mean a person who is introvert may not have leadership characteristics or traits?
No, it does not suggest that.
Okay.
An introvert may not be in a position to maybe directly speak to people or whatever, but on a one-to-one ground or on a one-to-one level, the person may be able to handle people or even connect with people.
Right.
I believe that is the case with the current situations, current scenarios. I mean, unless you are an extrovert and outspoken, I mean, people won't be considering you as a good leader. You need to be very vocal in whatever the traits that you have.
దా పాప నాతో ఏంటి నీకు నేను పెడతా కదా అన్నం
Mute Somebody is asking.
ఓపెన్ చేద్దాం ఇంటికి వెళ్ళాక తీద్దాం. ఇక్కడ వాడి ఇంట్లోకి వచ్చి వాడికి ఇప్పుడు మధ్యాహ్నం కూడా పెట్టాలా పెరగాలి? ఇప్పుడు కాదు నాన్న, అన్నం తిన్నాక ఇస్తుందాను.
Someone is unmuted, please.
Yeah, I'm muted. Okay. Yeah. So as we were saying, see, you all need to understand one thing. One, the personality characteristics, the opposites like extrovert or introvert. It doesn't mean like each individual has only one personality trait. A person will have qualities of extraversion as well as introversion. It's just that if a person is more of an extrovert, that means, or if a person's score is falling more of an extrovert, that means that person has more of extrovert quality, but he also will have the qualities of an introvert. So that is how it works. And when we are talking about leadership, yes, a person who has, like you all, I agree with whatever you have said. Extroversion is the tendency to be outgoing, to be assertive, to be active, mingle with people, outspoken, as you all said about all these things. So that doesn't mean an introvert cannot be a leader. They also will have all those qualities. It's just that the way they deal with certain things is quite different from an extrovert. So an extrovert might just, in a room full of people, an extrovert might go and start talking to everybody and, start making connections and contacts and so on. Whereas an introvert might want to understand or observe people and then go and talk to only those people whom they feel they may be comfortable with, or they feel that that person may be useful, and so on. So leadership can be like either ways. And the next.
You mean to say that, I mean, they need to be an ambivert to be a better leader?
I am not saying the person has to be extrovert, ambivert, or an introvert. I'm saying no individual. So if you've covered MBTI, now the Myers-Briggs personality inventory, if you have done that MBTI test, you will understand that every individual has both the qualities of an extrovert as well as introvert, or intuitive or perceiving. So it's not that they have only one quality and the other quality is absent. It's just that the score tells you where you lie. So I'm not saying a person has to be ambivert. I'm saying every person is different. I'm saying it's not only that extroverts can be great leaders, even introverts can be good leaders or great leaders. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Right. So the next is conscientiousness, that is being dependable and achievable and achievement oriented. Then there is openness to experience, openness to learning, the tendency to be creative, innovative, imaginative, and thoughtful at the same time. And emotional intelligence or emotional stability. This is the tendency to be calm, tendency to not have mood swings, or tendency to not be depressed, and be able to handle every situation different, having that emotional intelligence where they will be able to judge the situation and then say whatever they want to say. And somewhere emotional intelligence is also very important in a leadership trait. That is because, one, a person will be able to understand how, depending on the situation, how they need to react. Supposingly, you're in a team and you're having a team meeting, and all of a sudden one of the team members is being very aggressive because he's not able to meet the demands and requirements of what the organization is asking for a particular project, for example, and probably limited resources are provided, or he's unhappy that there's less manpower, or he or she is wanting to do has to do all the work, and so on. Now, being a leader, He cannot just be outrageous at that particular person. He cannot start shouting at that individual. He cannot say, okay, you cannot speak like that to me, and so on. He needs to understand what the situation is. Why is this person being aggressive? So this is by using the emotional intelligence skill, what he or she possesses as a leader, and then handle a situation in a very smart way. So that also covers a part of leadership trait that is very much essential. And so, yeah, these are the ones that help support as a predictor of leadership. Now, when a leadership review was done, when on these big 5 personality traits, it was found that extroversion is the most important trait for an effective leader. Now, this is again something that researchers say, but it is also more strongly related to the way leaders emerge than to their effectiveness. So probably because they are more outgoing, they are more assertive in nature. Probably that is one reason. More sociable. Maybe that could also be one of the reasons. Now, sociable and dominant people are more likely to assert themselves in group situations, but leaders need to make sure that they are not too assertive, because one of the studies which was conducted also showed that leaders who scored very high on assertiveness were less effective than those who were moderately high. This is because if a leader is being assertive and always says like, no, you have to do it the way I've told you, no, this has to work in the way I have told you, then that again will lead to a problem, because people don't like to be dominated. People don't like to be told what has to be done, what not has to be done all the time, because we are all dealing with adults. School and college, that's still okay, but dealing with adults, again, it becomes a challenge. Unlike agreeableness and emotional stability, openness to experience also showed strong leadership relationship to a strong leadership trait, but it was not so strong as extroversion. So the overall trait approach, if you're talking about the big 5 personality traits, or I mean any kind of personality traits, overall they had some kind of connection with the leadership styles. So leaders who like being around people and are able to assert themselves, who are disciplined and are able to make commitments, who are creative and flexible, do have apparent advantages when it comes to leadership, suggesting good leaders have all these traits in common. And it, on the contrary note, if we want to look at it, 20 years ago, it was believed that because of big 5 personality traits, leadership could also be predicted. But in today's era, that is not true. It's not only that if a person scores very high on big 5 personality traits is going to be a good leader. It can be the other way around also. That's what the other researchers have proved. So the traits do a better job predicting the emergence of leaders and the appearance of leadership than actually distinguishing between effective and ineffective leaders. So the overall goal of having a leader is to have the group be together, stand together in achieving a common goal. So along with all these researches that were done, it was seen and it was then categorized, okay, these are the personality traits that can be categorized for leadership qualities. So even today, maybe not all the organizations, some of the organizations, if they would like to hire for a leadership position, they may use this kind of personality assessments to see how effective a leader can be. What are the traits or what are the personality characters this individual has, and how he would be able to handle or lead a group of people in the organization effectively. So this is something that is Any questions or doubts? So no, okay, I'll continue with the next. Just a minute. Okay. Right. The next theory is the behavioral theory. The first one was a trait theory of leadership. So we saw how personality traits can play a role in the leadership qualities. The next is the behavioral theory. So here, again, as the name suggests, the main focus is behaviors of actual leaders. So they determine how various kinds of specific leaders' behavior affect the performance and satisfaction of the followers. Now, behavior leadership quality, one you need to understand is behavior is something that can be learned and sometimes it's inherent also. But most of the time behaviors can be learned. But whereas when we were talking about the trait theories, trait leadership theory is more of inherent. It's something that cannot be learned. Your personality characteristics, like whether you want to be an extrovert or introvert, cannot be learned. It has to be, it is innate. Whereas behavior, if you're talking about, it is something that is learned or taught. Now, how when we were talking about like behavior leadership style, behavior leadership theories also talk about some of the studies that they conducted on different leadership style to understand how these leadership styles influenced the group of people, how a behavior of a leader influenced the group of people. Okay, to understand this, there were three studies which are there in your syllabus. One is Iowa Leadership Study, Ohio Leadership Study, and Michigan Leadership Study. Now, if we want to look at the Iowa Leadership Studies, Iowa Leadership Study was conducted by a group of psychologists named Lippitt, White, Levin in the year 1939 on comparison of three leadership styles: autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire. So before we proceed, I would like to ask you all, are you aware of autocratic leadership style?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me what that is?
That is somebody who would say it is my way or highway. That is a person who would expect whatever conditions or whatever has been told has to be followed to the T without any kind of deviation or without any kind of change from the routine.
Okay.
And would not accept ideas from maybe the rest of the team, would only want to give ideas and have them followed.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Rachna. Example of autocratic leadership where you still find
dictatorships.
We find it in the army. Army is one place where you would find it even now.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Somebody else said something?
Some dictatorship countries, like where you...
Yeah. Russia?
I'm not sure whether Russia is a dictatorship or not.
In China, it still follows autocratic leadership.
North Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yes. Right. Good. Then what is democratic leadership?
Where even the team members have a say in decision making.
Okay.
To a certain extent, what we have in our country is democratic leadership because we have elected people and put them there.
Good. Example of democratic apart from our country. In organizations, anyway, if you find. So you said autocratic is army, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So example of democratic.
Student leaders, basically, they will be elected with a democratic process.
Okay, yeah. Good. And what is laissez-faire?
Somebody has to.
Okay, I muted them.
Yes. Laissez-faire is when it is a free-for-all. The leader does not really put in too much of effort. It is like free reign, it's called. Laissez-faire from French, it translates into free reign.
Mm-hmm. Right, very good. Example?
Example in companies is, it would be more in the creative field that you will find laissez-faire, because you don't want people to be tied down by decisions. So what would be done is you give everybody the opportunity to participate and work in their way. So if you are maybe in an advertising agency or somewhere in the creative field, you might find laissez-faire happening more often.
Right.
Free market economy, I think.
Free market economy. Yes, you're right. Okay, so another thing in democratic, it's again divided into consultative and persuasive. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this. So consultative is where you are asking the group for, you're consulting the group, you're taking their decisions into consideration, while persuasive is where you have already taken a decision and you're pursuing, you're trying to convince them that you are right. So this is again, democratic has two parts to it as well. That was just for your information. Anyway, coming back to the Iowa leadership studies. So these three psychologists, they wanted to compare the different leadership styles. So what they did was they wanted to look at this, and they conducted the study on 10-year-old schoolboys who were divided into three groups, and each group had around like 5 to 6 boys. Okay, and there were three leaders with different traits. That is, one who was autocratic in nature, one who was democratic in nature, and one who was having laissez-faire trait in nature. So all the three groups were given one leader, and each group were given a task of making paper masks, model airplanes, and painting the wooden toys. And all these three group of 10-year-old boys were led by an adult leader with these characteristics. Now, as the autocratic leader, by the nature of being autocratic, he was very descriptive and he made all the decisions for the group. He did not allow any of the students to give their inputs while throughout this process of making the airplane models and so on. And he had told all the students who were with him, all those boys who were with him, to follow his instructions and do what he has asked them to do. Whereas more coming to the democratic leader, to his group, he encouraged the boys to speak. He wanted to hear them out. He wanted to understand how they would want to work. He wanted to understand and encourage the discussions that were happening in that group, and he wanted them to work on that. He also shared his knowledge with whatever he had, and then they had a good discussion and then planned, and the execution of the task began. While the third group, the laissez-faire leader, by nature of being laissez-faire, he did not interfere into what the boys were doing, So he did not provide any instructions. He did not have any discussions with the group. He did not, instruct anything to the group and so on. He wanted the boys to go ahead and do whatever they want to do, but end of the day, he wanted the results. Now, before we see what the results were of V leadership, what does the class think? How was the behavior of the boys in the autocratic group?
Can you repeat the question once again, please?
In the autocratic group, I wanted to know what are your thoughts was the behavior of the boys?
I mean, after some time, they may have started actually opposing whatever the leader was saying. I mean, it will rise to kind of conflicts, and the end results may have affected with that.
True. So, yes, you're right. So being in the autocratic group, they were always instructed what to do, how to do, and what they should not do and so on. So end of the study, it was realized that, the boys didn't want to work, or they didn't know how to work without being instructed. So in the middle of the study, all the 3 leaders were asked to go out for some time to observe what the boys were doing. So in the autocratic condition, it was seen that when the leader left, the boys didn't know how to complete the task because there was nobody who was giving them direction. They didn't know how to proceed. They didn't know what to do. So they, the work which they were doing, making those planes and all that just halted for a while. Whereas in democratic, it was observed that when the leader left, people were involved in what they were doing because they were into the decision. Well, in the beginning, they were part of the decision with the leader, on how to go about with making those choices. While laissez-faire, once the leader left, because there was no direction given, they didn't know what to do. They were just left on their own, and the leader only gave them instructions. If the boys asked, the boys again didn't really bother to do anything when the leader was out. So it suggested the overall findings of this research. It was seen that the style of behavior of a leader can affect the group they lead. So it was seen that in democratic and laissez-faire, mostly in democratic, it was seen leaders were more, the students were more effective in terms of doing the task as compared to the autocratic and laissez-faire. So again, autocratic, as long as the leader is present, they were able to complete the task. But once the leader left, they didn't know what to do because they had nobody giving them instructions. Whereas in laissez-faire, because the leader was not really taking part in any of the activities and they were left to do whatever they want to do. So the productivity was very less. The children, the boys didn't really take part in the task, what they were doing. So autocratic leadership does provide high productivity only when the leader is present. Now, this is again according to the study, okay, Iowa study. And when the leader and the dependent on the leader was high, and when the leader was not present, there was no work being done. And again, there was aggression seen in the boys in this particular group. Moving on to the other groups, like there was high productivity in the democratic group, and there was like moderate to no productivity in the laissez-faire group. Because after a certain point, the boys, they just left. They didn't want to continue with the task, what they were doing. So these studies have shown that different styles of leadership can produce different complex relationships. from the same groups. So the Iowa study, the leadership studies, they, after this Iowa leadership study, there were also Ohio and Michigan leadership study, which took this forward. Okay. Any doubts? Any questions?
No, none.
Okay. Now, moving on to the next leadership study in terms of behavior is the Ohio leadership study. The initial one, the first one was Iowa. Now this is Ohio. Okay. So the in the Ohio State Leadership Study, the Bureau of Business Research, initiated a series of studies on leadership qualities in the year 1945. So again, a team of psychologists, sociologists, economists, they came together to identify independent dimensions of leader behavior. They wanted to examine how the leader behavior was described by their subordinates who are working together in the response of a questionnaire named Leader Behavior Descriptive Questionnaire. So they analyzed the subordinates' answer using this Leader Behavior Descriptive Questionnaire and came up with 2 dimensions of leadership behavior, which are not dependent on each other. Okay? These 2 dimensions are initiating structure and consideration. So what is initiating structure? If you look at it, initiating structure is when the leader is able to define the structure and the role of the employees who work towards the goals of the organization. Whereas consideration is where the leader was able to gain trust and respect of the followers by understanding what the issues were, by understanding where they were coming from, and trying to help them in whatever way he can, and appreciate what they do. So both these behaviors have been proven to be very important in the effectiveness of a leader. And so in the initiating structure, so when a leader is, when you're looking at leader under this dimension of initiating structure, this leader assigns tasks to the group members. This leader designs roles, designs like job roles, job descriptions. Leader helps the group members to understand the outcome, the output, the goal, and what are the expectations and how they can meet the expectations and so on. Whereas in the dimension of consideration, the leader listens to the group members. The leader is willing to accommodate or adjust or make changes to a structure which is already existing after listening to the group members to make it more workable for them or more comfortable for them to work in that particular situation. And in consideration, the leader has like an approachable nature where anybody can approach the leader and discuss about their challenges or the pros and cons of the situation or the task given to them. And here in consideration, the leader is more concerned about the people. And so there were like a lot of researches that were done on both these leadership qualities. And one thing that was observed over here is a leader who is high in initiating structure and consideration was able to achieve high satisfaction, job satisfaction, as well as employee performance was high on these type of leaders. Then on leaders who were rated low in initiating structure or low on consideration or low on both the things. So a leader who had high on initiating structure and who was high on considerate also would look at also showed like good job performance. It was seen that there was less of absenteeism, there were more of productivity. It was seen there was very high level of job satisfaction among the team members or the workers who were under that particular leader. And some of the studies also found that high consideration was not only related to performance rating, it was also seen to the other aspects of the leadership qualities. Then, to sum up the Ohio State studies, it suggested that, generally a leader who has high in consideration and rates high in initiating structure always showed better leadership qualities, and also saw that the team experienced a high level of job satisfaction as well. So, moving on to the Michigan study. So here it is very much similar to the Ohio study, but here the two dimensions are employee oriented and production oriented. But before we move on to the Michigan leadership, any questions or doubts in the Ohio leadership studies?
I mean, probably I would have missed it, but when you mentioned that taking these two dimensions, like high is good, low is bad. But if we have the high initiating structure and low consideration, and with a high consideration and low initiation structure, can you just repeat it once more? Because that is if both of them are also like acceptable level, or how is it?
It is acceptable. Let's think about it in terms of example. Okay. Now, a leader is high on initiating structure, I said, right? So the leader has assigned tasks to the group members, directs the group members, sets goals for them, and he wants them to work in a certain way. Now, the team, what he's leading, he has defined a structure and everything and given it to them. Now he wants them to perform and give the results. Now, in this particular team, maybe one person is not able to come to work because of some personal reasons. Maybe the other person is not able to complete the work because of manpower challenges. The other person has resource challenges. Okay, so if the leader is low on consideration, when these team members come to the leader and tell them, these are our problems, I don't know, this person is on leave, so I have to do my work and the other work also. The other person comes and tells, I don't have enough resources to work on this thing, can you provide me more resources, and so on. If the leader is not considerable, then he will say, no, it doesn't matter whether this person is there or not, you have to come and do your work. It doesn't matter if resources are limited, with whatever is provided to you, do your work. So obviously he's not considering, or he's not considering the challenges that the team members are facing. All he wants is the work to be done, right? So do you think there will be productivity and job satisfaction among those members?
No.
Okay, so this is what the study says. Now, taking it the other way around, if the leader is low on initiating structure and high on consideration, so there is again, a project is given, a team leader is assigned, and there are team members. Okay, the team members have to meet the targets and complete the project on time. Now, the leader is very much considerate. So one person comes and says, I have my children's exams coming up. I can't do overtime, or I won't be able to come for so-and-so period of time because of so-and-so reason, and leaves. Another person says, okay, we had, I was not able to complete this task on so-and-so date because I didn't have enough resources. So please consider that. The other person says, I don't know what my job is. This person was supposed to do it, he didn't do it. And so, I could not proceed further. So all these certain kind of issues can come up. So at that time, do you think they would be able to reach the productivity?
No.
So Now, if a leader who is high on structure and high on consideration also, so he has structured all the roles, he's also willing to consider what the employees are saying, but to an extent where it does not affect the project. That is, if a person says, you know, this person is absent, so I am having extra work. So probably the leader can extend the deadline by bit, or hire part-timers, or provide them extra resources to work on if they say I have limited resources. So do you think they will be able to complete the project in a better way?
Maybe, madam, maybe.
Maybe, right? So that is what the research says. And it was seen that it was seen through the research that those who are high on initiating structure and consideration definitely showed high job satisfaction. There was less absenteeism, and there was less, grievances among the employees, or else it was like high on the other hand.
So with your example, you were indicating that high low and low high time, these two variants are not acceptable rather than acceptable, because you mentioned that with a high low and low high, like if you take those two dimensions, the productivity is lost. You in your example, you were saying that, I mean, they were not able to achieve better productivity. So that is not good as a leadership behavior.
You may say that. I was trying to tell you, according to the study which was conducted, it was proved that high gave a positive outcome.
Yeah, that is given. Yes, yes.
I am saying that high low may not always give a positive outcome. It's not necessary, and it's not necessary that it always has to give a negative outcome also.
Okay.
It can be other way around. See, that's what, so these studies were conducted like way long back. Now situations have changed. Things have changed. If you do a leadership study on these two dimensions now, give this questionnaire to the subordinates or the co-workers and ask them to fill. So probably you may get a different result.
Of course, yes. I mean, today's in today's world, we are going towards no leadership. So I think.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Welcome. Right. Moving on to the next leadership study, which is the Michigan leadership study. This concentrated on two dimensions: employee orientation and production orientation, like employee oriented and production oriented. So this study was very much similar to the Ohio study. The main objective was to identify behavioral traits of leaders that appeared to be related to measure the performance effectiveness. How well were the employees able to perform if the leadership quality was more of employee oriented or production oriented. So the employee oriented, as the name suggests, the leader emphasized on employees, their interpersonal skills. That is, the leader took extra efforts to understand the needs of the co-workers or the team members, to understand what are the individual differences among the team members, which could create conflicts or which would create, some kind of challenges to work together. And in employee oriented, again, the leader was open to more of like democratic, open to understand what in the discussions, open to ideas, open to opinions, and take everything into consideration and then make certain decisions, or make a way for using all these things. So employee orientation is more of like consideration dimension of the Ohio state. Whereas if you're looking at the production oriented is more similar to the initiating structure of the Ohio state. So in the production-oriented leader, this thing, they emphasized on the production, they emphasized on the job roles, job responsibilities, the task-oriented, the skills that are required, and so on. And the main aim of this production oriented was the group has to accomplish the task, and the group members were more like, members who were just there to complete the task on time and, complete the work on time and meet the organization's goals. So this type was more, like I said, it was more seen among those leaders who preferred to be more on the initiating structure side. So again, when the research was done, the researchers who conducted the study found that leaders were preferred who were more of people oriented or employee oriented in terms of behavior rather than being production oriented. So they preferred a leader who would understand them, who would take their opinions and ideas into consideration to meet the organization goal. And the employee-oriented leaders were more better in performance in terms of reaching the productivity, in terms of job satisfaction than the production-oriented leaders. So, if you look at today's situation, here you can see that employees are more, all the organizations are concentrating on employee well-being. All the organizations are talking about work-life balance. All the organizations are talking about, employee benefit, employee well-being, work-life balance, and personal life balance, how to handle difficult situations, and so on, right? So if an organization, obviously, if a leader is just concentrating on the production type, definitely there will be a high absenteeism or high turnover. So you can even observe this. Even if in an organization, if a team leader or somebody is just providing instructions to you, is not considering your request, there's no proper breaks given to you. Supposingly you go and ask for permission, no permissions are given to you, and it is denied, then definitely you don't feel like working for that organization. Either you start showing a lot of absenteeism and then there is a turnover, that is you quit the company, or you just, if you have no other go, you just, if you're just stuck with this company, maybe because of contract or for some other reason, then, you might show less productivity and high absenteeism. But whereas if you see employees working in an employee-oriented organization or considerable oriented organization where leaders are present, then you will see employees enjoying their work, employees giving high productivity, and also you will see less absenteeism and less turnover of employees. So this can be observed. So this was about the Michigan leadership studies. Any questions or doubts? I take it as a no. This is just
no.
Understanding. Do you break in between or do you continuously have like 1.5 hours?
We have continuous, ma'am.
Mostly a continuous one.
Okay, sure. And every class, only one unit is covered, right?
No, multiple units.
No.
It's like
the
1.5
size maybe of the chapter also.
Okay. 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 The next, coming to the managerial grid. So now again, managerial grid is a two-dimensional leadership style. Like we had seen in Ohio, we had seen in Michigan. This is managerial grid is also a two-dimensional leadership style. Now, this was developed by Blake and Morton, and this is known as the managerial grid. So now the two dimensions here are one concern for people and the other one concern for production. So this grid identifies 5 basic styles of leadership. Okay. I'll show you this. So if you look at this grid, it has like 1 to 9 here, which says concern for production, and 1 to 9 vertical, which says concern for people. 1 being low on both the horizontal and the vertical axis, and 9 being high on the horizontal and the vertical axis. So if we are looking at it, so the managerial grid is 9 vertical and 9 horizontal matrix with 5 leadership skills, or some book says like 8 leadership skills. Okay, leadership styles, and the two dimensions are more equivalent to the Ohio model, which is like consideration and initiating structure styles, and employee-oriented and production-oriented styles suggested by the Michigan state. So Black and Morton, they emphasized on the 5 basic styles in the grid. Okay, so they said they represented varying combination of concern for people and production. So they said the 1-1, which you can see here, the 1-1, the low one. The manager or the leader had low concern for people and low production. So this style didn't really work out, and it was known as impoverished style. So the opposite of this, if you look at this 9 and 9, which is high concern for people and high concern for production, this showed a high they showed like a very good leadership style, which was known as the team builder. So obviously a person who is having low, who is scoring low on production and low on consideration, that means they're not doing a good job as a leader. The productivity is 0. The the output is 0 or nil. And obviously the employees are not really happy with this kind of production. This kind of leadership style. Whereas a leader who has scored high on production and high on the concern for people, that they are known as a team builders, because they could manage the team, they could consider the team, they know how production works, they were very considerate in structuring the project, in structuring or developing the job roles, in providing inputs to the employees and so on. So they could do their best to bring out the best output out of that. So according to Blake and Morton, the 9-9 leadership, that is high on concern for people and concern for production, is the best leadership style. Now there's also like mediating, if you look at it, a leader who is scoring 5 on the grid in terms of concern for production and concern for people, they represent like the organization manager. So organization manager means like, okay, they are not completely low or not completely high on production. They're like, it's like, mediator, like medium way. Then the other style, which is known as country club manager, is the one who has scored high and high on concern for people and low on production. Country club managers, like, they don't really care about the production. They emphasize more on the people, on the employees and so on. And on the other way around, they are called the task managers when they concentrate or emphasize more on production, or they are very high on production and very less on concern for people, where the production matters to them and concern for employees don't really matter to them. They are not employee oriented, they are not considerate in nature. So that is when they are known as task managers. And sorry, the researches which were done in Finland and Sweden and other countries, they tried to assess where these two dimensions of leadership that captured the attention of behavioral theorists. And the basic assumption that is in the changing world, that effective leaders would show a third dimension called the development oriented style that is reflected to effectiveness. Again, I'm repeating myself, this was done like years ago. So they thought the next leadership style which would come orient is developmental oriented styles. And if you look at the current studies on leadership, so this is already emerged, and much more to that, much more than this has also come into consideration. So this was about the behavioral management traits. This is the same. If you're looking at global implications, so the leadership theories are studied in English-speaking countries across the globe, and even in non-English-speaking countries, I would say. Now, this is something that Robin and Jaja said. And if you look at globe-wise, globe doesn't have some country-specific insights. Brazilian team prefer leaders who are high in consideration, participative, and high leadership scores. French workers want a leader who is high on initiating, structure, and task-oriented. Egyptian employees value team-oriented and participative leadership while keeping a high power distance. And Chinese workers may prefer moderately participative styles. So leaders should also take culture into consideration. Now, why are we saying, or why are we talking about this? That leaders should also consider cultural consideration. Supposedly, you're working in an organization, in a multinational company or something, and you are transferred to another country based on a project, or you're promoted to another country as a leader. So there you need to understand what is the leadership style that employees prefer rather than having your own leadership style. So, you know, if you're going, if you're coming from, like you said, North Korea, right? They have autocratic leadership styles. If you're coming from that, and if you're trying to implement that in India or in US, that may not work out for you. So it is very much important for a leader to also concentrate, keep the culture in mind while portraying the leadership role. And leadership is central to understanding good behavior as a leader provides the direction. The big five, if you have the one which we have read, all show consistent relationships to leadership. Then behavioral approaches have narrowed leadership down into two usable dimensions, like we have seen, whether it is Iowa, Ohio, or Michigan, we have always seen like two different leadership styles. So we have not covered situation and charismatic and all that, so I will not continue with that. So this was about the leadership one part of the chapter. Any questions or doubts?
Ma'am, a small request. If you can go through the slides once, can we take a screenshot, or would you be comfortable in sharing the presentation with us?
Yeah, I can share the presentation with you all. And like I said, I've taken the Pearson's presentation. It is also available online. So,
okay. Thank you so much.
You can just type Robbins and Judge and, PowerPoint presentation on leadership skills. You'll find it. Right. So can I know, like, are you all master students or BA students?
Masters.
Masters. Okay. Right. Any questions? Any doubts? Okay, then. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.